Wow, this is amazing. 29 years ago, if you were into computers, you weren't playing video games in your basement. You weren't surfing the web. You were definitely not downloading MP3s. If you were lucky, you were in a computer club. And perhaps the most famous was Silicon Valley's Home Brew Computer Club. Take a look.
It was the first place where it was hip to be square. Silicon Valley's Menlo Park in 1975. 32 people gathered in a garage, their intention to create a free place to experiment with computers. It was called the Home Brew Club. Intel introduced its 8080 chip that year, and a small firm in Albuquerque announced a computer kit called the Altair. It was a clunky and unfriendly machine, but the Home Brew Club saw the opportunity and the necessity to improve on the Altair. Members were engineers, machinists, physicians, and even ham radio enthusiasts. They were hobbyists who had little access to computers outside the club, but knew there was something amazing that would come out of these meetings. And they were right. It was the first Apple computer. Steve Wozniak demonstrated his first computer design there, the Apple I. Other projects included Lee Felsenstein's first alphanumeric video display adapter and Harry Garland's color graphic card, to name just a few. The rest is computer history. By 1978, Silicon Valley had become the focal point for the industry. In a time before Bill Gates and Microsoft ruled the world, there was the Home Brew Club, the real activists and innovators who worked together to find a human purpose for the computer.
Joining us in the studio, this is what doing this show for the last 6 years has culminated in, has led up to. From the Home Brew Computer Club, on my far right, the designer of the Osborne 1, co-inventor of the Sol 20, the penny whistle modem, and moderator of the Home Brew Computer Club, Lee Felsenstein. Great to have you. Next to him, the man who founded what I didn't just found out is the oldest surviving microcomputer manufacturer. So it might be on life support, but it's still surviving. Started in 1974, Kromemco, of course, Harry Garland, creator of the Zazzler. Next to Harry, the founder of Processor Technology Corp., co-inventor of the Sol 20, Bob Marsh. Great to have you, Bob. On my left, a man who designed the Macintosh, Canon CAD, and author of Human Interface, the Human Interface, wonderful book, Jeff Raskin. It's great. We've had you on before. Great to have you back. Next to him, firmware designer for the Apple I and systems designer for the Apple II, Alan Baum. Alan, welcome. And a man who prefers to be known as the creator of the Bay Area's first dial-a-joke, but also co-founder of Apple Computer, Steve Wozniak. Harry just knocked me over because he brought in this cover. This was really what changed the world in 1975. Not just with you guys, but Steve Ballmer came running into his and Bill Gates' dorm room and said, look at this, you got to see this. I mean, this really galvanized people. This is, of course, the cover of the 1975 Popular Electronics, where the Altair was announced, the world's first microcomputer kit. It's hard for us to imagine now, 29 years later, what it was like in 1975. Do you remember your first meeting, Steve, and seeing this for the first time?
Oh boy, it affected me so much. I had no idea what was going on when I went to the meeting. Alan, thank God, Alan invited me, told me it's a group of people interested in video terminals and stuff like that, and I've been working on such things, and when I arrived, here's a picture of a computer, and they had one on display, and I said, microcomputers, what are these things? I was kind of scared.
What was the environment like before this? I mean, could you work with a computer? I mean, how could you have a computer?
Well, you couldn't.
You just couldn't.
Who knows?
You could be in the university.
You have a big mainframe, and you'd go to the priesthood with your punch cards and say, please, sir, may I have some time?
They'd gotten so big and complicated. I had dropped out of computers and was being a musician. As soon as I saw that cover, I said, computers are going to get interesting again, and ran out and got one.
Well, for me, my first year in college, I told my dad, I'm going to have a computer. I'm going to have the 4K Nova computer someday. And he said, costs as much as a house. That's when I said, I'll live in an apartment. And it was really that day, the first day of the Home Brew Computer Club, that I realized, finally, I am going to have the computer I wanted.
Wow. Harry, is this your copy of the
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So you, too, were affected that way?
Oh, indeed, yes.
Did you actually buy this on the newsstand? What happened? What was your...
Well, at that time, I had been writing articles with Roger Mellon for Popular Electronics for a number of years.
Right. So this was your magazine,
and
really.
So that was my magazine, and we first discovered about this computer before it came out in Popular Electronics in the offices, the editorial offices of the magazine, because we were talking to them about another story.
Right.
And Les Sullivan, who was one of the key people, the technical editor of Popular Electronics, said, gosh, why don't you take and interface some of your stuff to this new Altair computer? Maybe it'll help it sell. I'm really worried about this thing.
Did Ed Roberts bring it in? How did it get into the office there?
So Les Sullivan actually had the Altair in his office in New York, and they were planning this big story. But it was a big risk for Popular Electronics. This was, a computer in a hobbyist magazine. This is, is this really going to make sense? And so he was interested in gathering some support and rallying some of his authors to support it.
Lee, do you remember when you first saw this cover? Was this just as important to you?
Yes, I believe that Bob Marsh showed it to me. This
Yeah.
is the way I got magazines for free. But
what did Bob say? Do you remember?
look at this.
Yeah.
If I
It's
recall
interesting.
correctly.
It's really interesting because, if I said, look at this now, to most people they go, yeah, huh, so. But for each and every one of you, it was a galvanizing experience to see this.
Well, Bob said also, look at these pictures. It's clear this thing is a fake.
You can't do that.
And that meant that there was going to be a market for something. I mean, we all, I guess we were in this group because we knew and understood
Something's
that people were
happening.
going to want this.
Something's happening. Well, you were one of the founders of the group. You moderated the club.
From the fourth meeting on,
Yeah.
yes. But I was on the first meeting.
But Gordon French
Gordon French and Fred Moore
deserved the credit.
called the meeting,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
I should say the late Fred Moore. He died a few years
Yeah.
ago.
And what was their intent? What were they trying to do?
I think that they believed they were going to hold some sort of hardware class, but then the Altair came along and changed everything.
It changed from being a class to let's build one and play with one.
Well, not so much build one. The club meeting happened because the first, I think, serial number 8.
Three.
Oh, first unit, the review unit for the People's Computer Company, which was the only sort of new computer hobbyist publication there was, or like an underground paper. It was sent out for that, so everybody who had any connection with that publication got to see it, and we all couldn't figure out what to do with it, and eventually it wound up in Gordon French's garage. With the club convened around it, 32 people.
That was the first meeting at the garage. And were you all bowing down to it? Were you trying to? Was Steve trying to take it apart? What was going on in that?
I was too scared to say anything.
Really?
That was learning.
Were you
Oh my
kind
gosh.
of in awe of the other people there, or
I didn't think I'd come back because I really had been spending my time designing calculators at Hewlett Packard, and I'd gotten out of computers. So I took home a data sheet. They passed out a data sheet. This was give out information. That was the theme of the club. Started the first night. Took home a data sheet on a microprocessor and said, "Oh my gosh, this is like the computers I used to design in high school." So I was back in business.
So was that kind of what everybody thought? Is let's make something of this? Let's do what? I mean, what were you going for?
I put it into business immediately.
You said this is a business.
Well, I didn't see it that way. I said, hey, this is going to be fun, interesting. Let's see what.
Right.
Built one, and met this stockbroker who was paying something like $10,000 a month for time sharing. And I said, if I could write that program that he's using on this little machine, I could buy this machine and sell it to him for a few months' rent and make a lot of money.
Do you think, Alan, you guys were unique in seeing the potential of this? I mean, certainly the whole world didn't just jump up and say, hey, it's a computer.
No, I think we looked at it as this is coming, this critical mass is here.
Yeah.
We can do this now.
Yeah.
We couldn't do this before. A few people could do it before, but mostly companies, and now people can do it.
Meanwhile, IBM's saying the entire world market for computers is about 18, and we're not going to even get anywhere near this business, right? I mean, they didn't get it, right?
It was a little bit later in history than that.
Yeah.
That was disruptive to their business model.
So, to say the least. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about each of your first meetings, and then some of the things that came out of this, like this, Harry's Dazzler board. This is the fun story. We'll talk more when the ScreenSavers continues. Stay right here.